welcome to this explainer. Okay, if you're stepping into a career technical education role, especially within the California community colleges system, you're taking on a massive, truly vital mission. You're not just teaching classes here, you are stepping up as the actual steward of an occupational program. It's on you to keep the curriculum fresh, evaluate safety needs, and make sure your students are absolutely primed for real-world employment opportunities. So today, we're unpacking the absolute most critical tool you have in your arsenal to make that happen.
I want you to ask yourself, what is the single structure keeping your college connected to the real-world workforce? Well, the answer is your CTE Advisory Committee. And let me be incredibly clear right out of the gate here. This committee is not just some group of community members who show up for a yearly meet and greet with free coffee and donuts. No way. It is the absolute lifeline of your occupational program. It's the core evidence proving that your program remains relevant, responsive, and deeply connected to the industries it serves.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the law of the land, approvals and Perkins funding, validating the labor market, documenting your evidence, and finally, closing the feedback loop.
All right, starting right off with Section 1, the law of the land.
We really need to shift our focus from just a general idea of what an advisory committee is to the strict regulatory compliance demanded by the state of California, because it is mandatory. Look at this quote directly from the California Code of Regulations, Title 5, Section 55601. It explicitly says, the governing board of each community college district participating in a vocational education program shall appoint a vocational education advisory committee. And notice it highlights two main jobs here, developing recommendations for the program and acting as a liaison between the district and potential employers.
Now, I really want to lean in and heavily emphasize that word shall. In a legal and regulatory context, shall means this is mandatory, period. This isn't just bureaucratic red tape, and it's definitely not an optional best practice or a polite suggestion. It is an absolute legal requirement to maintain compliance. Why are they mandatory? Well, because faculty expertise and informal chats with employers simply aren't enough to prove your program meets current workforce conditions. You legally must have this formal connection.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the clear line drawn between advising and authorizing. The advisory committee's role is exactly that, advisory. Employers are there to validate industry needs, flag emerging tech, and tell you what skills are missing out there in the real world. But they don't write the curriculum, they don't give out grades, or replace academic responsibility. It's the faculty who take those valid industry needs and translate them into rigorous, accessible college curriculum, which is then formally approved by the curriculum committee.
Moving right along to Section 2, approvals and Perkins funding.
This legal mandate we just talked about, it acts as the ultimate gatekeeper for your program's reality, its approvals, and its money. Seriously, if you want to get a new credit CTE program approved by the Chancellor's office, you literally cannot do it without your advisory committee. The state asks for a program narrative and course outlines, sure, but they also explicitly demand labor market information, a formal advisory committee recommendation, and the actual meeting minutes that document that recommendation. If you're missing these specific pieces of evidence, your curriculum approval just stops dead in its tracks.
And hey, it's not just about state approval either, it's about federal money. To tap into Perkins v. funding, districts have to complete what's called a Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment, or CLNA. And this process requires ongoing consultation with a really diverse group. Everyone from CTE faculty and local workforce boards to students, parents, and special population reps. Your advisory committee provides amazing evidence for this, but just a heads up, a traditional employer-only committee might not cover every single Perkins category on its own.
So here's the absolute crucial takeaway. Perkins funding is not a shopping list for shiny new toys and equipment. Every single funding request must be strictly tied to documented program needs. It has to emerge from hard data, support equitable student learning, and align right back with that CLNA we just covered. Basically, your advisory committee helps build the rock-solid foundation of evidence that proves you actually need what you're asking for.
Okay, Section 3, validating the labor market.
So now we're moving from compliance and funding right into the heart of the curriculum. We're looking at how employer validation perfectly aligns what you teach in the classroom with harsh workforce realities. So what exactly is labor market information, or LMI? Simply put, it's objective, quantitative evidence that shows whether legitimate employment opportunities actually exist for your graduates in a specific region. Advisory committee opinions are pure gold for qualitative stuff, like shifting skill requirements, but they absolutely must be combined with this hard, objective LMI data to prove there's real demand.
And let me tell you, the state is constantly checking this alignment. Under California Education Code Section 78016, every single occupational training program has to be reviewed every 2 years by the district governing board. You have to prove labor market demand, show you aren't unnecessarily duplicating other programs, and demonstrate actual effectiveness through student employment. The stakes here? They're huge. Failing to meet these statutory standards during that 2-year review can literally subject your program to termination within 1 single year. Yikes.
Let's move into Section 4, documenting your evidence.
Since we know the stakes are incredibly high and the rules are strict, we need a game plan. Let's see how this builds into a highly practical 24-month action plan for any new faculty member to get all this compliance documented and organized. First 30 days? Don't change a thing. Just collect the official docs, course outlines, old minutes, that sort of thing. First semester, start mapping your employers and do a baseline scan of the program. By the end of year 1, you want to build up your evidence file and pinpoint your equipment and curriculum priorities. And then in year 2, you use all that great data to conduct your program review and submit any curriculum updates. It's a perfect structured path to protect and elevate your program over 24 months.
Now, a massive part of that evidence file is your meeting minutes. And the Chancellor's office, they expect absolute precision. A vague line like, "the committee discussed the program," is completely unacceptable for state approval. Your minutes have to be exact. They need to document the exact program title, the specific skills or equipment discussed, incredibly clear recommendations, motions, and exactly who is on the hook for following up.
Let's actually look at what proper documentation sounds like. Check out this model language. After reviewing the proposed Agricultural Systems Certificate, regional labor market information, equipment requirements, and employer skill expectations, the Advisory Committee recommends approval of the program as presented. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what the state wants to see. Notice how it names the specific program, lists the exact evidence reviewed, and makes a crystal clear, undeniable recommendation. That is exactly what your compliance records need to look like.
And finally, Section 5, closing the feedback loop.
All right, this is where we show exactly how the college responds to all that highly valuable industry input. We use a recommendation response matrix. Think of it as a "you said, we did" tracker. You simply list the advisory recommendation, the supporting evidence, the specific action the college took, and the current status. This matrix is incredibly practical visual proof. It shows accreditation bodies in the state exactly what compliant, responsive documentation looks like. It proves you aren't just politely listening, you are actually taking action.
Now, I should definitely clarify that you don't have to accept every single recommendation an employer throws your way. Valid responses absolutely include implementing the idea, sure, but they also include referring it to a curriculum committee, deferring it until you get more evidence, or even explicitly not adopting it because it clashes with academic standards or budget limits. The key is, as a steward of the program, you absolutely must document what happened to their recommendation.
Ultimately, taking this mandatory process seriously completely transforms what might be an isolated collection of courses into a dynamic, fully funded, and highly relevant career pathway. A successful CTE faculty member does so much more than just teach students how to do today's job. They build a resilient program capable of responding to tomorrow's workforce, all while maintaining rigorous academic integrity, equitable access, and driving student success. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on. Take a hard look at your current curriculum, look at your LMI, and look at those advisory committee minutes. Is your program preparing students for tomorrow's workforce or yesterday's? Use your advisory committee mandate not just as some boring compliance checklist, but as the powerful tool it actually is to guarantee your students' future success. Go review those records. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.